Here's the scenario. One is I knew God existed, but God did not have much to do with me in my view. I'd been laid off from my job, my career, my whole industry collapsed, all my friends were gone. I had a family to support. I was living in the basement, my marriage was ending. I spent my days online, like on internet chat rooms. One of the rooms I was in was a woman named DJ Platinum, and she had a spiritual room of Baptist songs, and I would sit for hours listening to Baptist music. And then I'd pop over to the Catholic rooms and talk to them, or not talk to them, just listen to them talk, because I needed to be around some godly people. And there was no God in my life, I thought. I desperately, desperately needed that. So I bumped into a priest in one of these Catholic rooms, and he hooked me with this question. He said, Pete, if I tell you something about myself, would you still be my friend? What a question to ask somebody from a priest. And that changed my whole view of that he was a human being. He gave me this book called The Prodigal Son. This will all come together. Oh, and then there was one other person in this Catholic chat room that people thought were crazy. And she would talk about healing, and she would talk about deliverance. And she'd leave this chat room and everybody had put her down. But I knew, like what you were talking about, I'd experienced that, or I'd seen that. But unless you really see it, right, or been around it, you go, like some people say, oh yeah, well that's nice for her, right? But if it's really happening, or you see that, and you experience it, then you start paying attention. And that woman became very important in my life. And I made a decision. I was either gonna go up to Seattle and see a friend I had met online, kind of get some freedom from whatever was bothering me, or I was gonna go down to Arizona, and there was this Marian conference going on in Arizona. And I'm there, and I go to the first night of the conference, and there's 700 people in this conference. It's huge. It's a gigantic conference, and I find the very back row, and there cannot be anybody sitting by me, and I'm in the very back row. And I've said this before, I know you say the front row is where the stuff happens. No, it's back there. Absolutely. The perfect church would have everything rotate up, boom, and the front people go back. Because it all happens back there. You know, I felt like, who's that tax collector in the tree, right? That's what I was. Watching all the people who were touching God, and I couldn't have any contact with them, right? I was really hopeless. Really, really hopeless. I'm sitting in the back row, and this guy named Father Pharisee, who I'd never heard of, was there. And he's got a sidekick named Cheryl, who was like up there, and they would sit up there and they'd say, hey, there's somebody here with some deal, and God is doing that, and some lady way over there would go, oh, wow. And I go, oh, well, this is kind of cool. I'm kind of digging this. Then it got to a part where he said, okay, everybody with back issues, stand up. And there was a lady over here on my right-hand side, and she was sitting alone too. She came alone. He said, okay, everybody go, I want people to go lay your hands on the people that, you know, stood up. She's standing up, and nobody's going up to her. Nobody, right? And I thought, oh, this really kind of sucks. I got up, and I didn't expect anything to happen. Because all I wanted to do is I didn't want her to feel alone. That was it, because I knew how I felt. Put my hands on her. Father Pharisee's up there doing his deal, and all of a sudden my hands start getting hot. It got done, and I walked over to my seat and I sat down, and I'm thinking, wow, that was kind of weird. She had turned her head around at me, and there's tears streaming down her face, and she mouths, why did he do that? I mean, really, because I assure you, I was in a state of mortal sin. I was not living my life the way I think the holy people do. But I found out that he didn't care. He had his plan. He's got a plan. And he uses the people he can use. And you know, the reason I told this story initially, it's almost like tonight. There's people here I know that are hopeless. And if there's one thing I know, God has an absolute plan. And it works really weird. I mean, how did I know the prodigal son would go together? How did I know that crazy woman would actually become my spiritual director? I was so moved, and that was just the beginning. That was the beginning of that weekend. And from that point on, you know, you think, oh boy, I got my power burst, now I can just go back and live my life. It didn't happen that way. That was the beginning of ramping up, right? And it hasn't stopped. It has not stopped. So anyhow, I went home that night, and there was one of the girls, would have lunches and talk about God. And I said, hey, do you know that, is this possible that this woman might have been healed somehow? And is that possible? Because I'm pretty sinful. She says, oh yeah, I've had Jesus work in a state of mortal sin. Yeah, that happens. Jesus will work through you no matter what. And Jesus' power is available to anybody. And I'll just say this. Whenever you pray, no matter who you are, something happens. All are healed, and some are even cured. Every time you pray for somebody. Every time.